Well, if you've been following my channel, so far I've been fixing things and cleaning things. Today's project's going to be a little bit different. I purchased a Garmin chart plotter, similar to a GPS for a car. The first thing I need to figure out is where I'm going to mount this. I've had boats before, and one boat I had it mounted up on the dash and it really hurt my sightline. Another boat I had it on a little ram. I didn't really like that either. It was often in the way. And I've always been envious of boats that had flush mounted chart plotters. Of course, I start looking around and there's just not a convenient spot that's open that's big enough. So I'm going to have to relocate some current equipment. It didn't take me long and I decided this is the spot right here. It will fit. I'm going to have to relocate the starter, the depth gauge, and the remote radio control. So let's get started. Well, I'm now inside the boat. I've removed a little access panel in the cabin that gets me to the back side of the helm. Here's the steering wheel. And here's the equipment that I'm going to need to relocate. The depth gauge, the radio remote, and below that the starter. I need to be careful not to have my saw blade hit this right here, which is the trim controls. So the first thing I need to do is remove what's there so I can make space for what I'm adding. For the depth gauge, we are looking at red to red, black to black, and white to blue. For the cup holder, the drain is connected with a tie. Okay, the wire that goes to the starter is going up to the bottom right terminal right here. I've removed the steering wheel to give me better access. I've removed the instruments that I need to relocate. And I've removed the cup holder as I've been feeling around to figure out where I'm going to put these instruments. It looks like these two instruments, the radio remote and the depth gauge, can fit right fine on the other side. And I'm going to reload the starter somewhere down below. I've taken the equipment that was here and I've relocated it, although the wires aren't attached yet. The stereo remote is here. The depth gauge worked out fine here. I was a little bit concerned, was it going to interfere with the cup holder, which I've gotten loosened up now and got the drain hose off of it, but it worked fine. If it was going to be an issue, I was prepared to switch these two, but no problem. It doesn't have a lot of clearance, but there's just a little bit of clearance between the side of the cup and this one that looks straight down. So yeah, we're good there. So I've then taken the starter. The starter's actually off, but here's the bracket, and I've got it all set up to go here. So that's going to be in the new starter location, as well as the indicator. And I'm ready to cut this. As preparation, I've taken a piece of paper. I've glued it to the surface, just using some Elmer's glue, because the paper wasn't sticky. I've taped it in place. I've rechecked for level multiple times under the belief, measure twice, cut once, and then I've taken a pencil and I've just gone over all the existing holes that are in here so I know where the holes are. I've got them close to the edge of the unit here, close to the edge of the unit here, but they're not past where the mounting screws are going to be. Got plenty of room for the other two mounting screws. And I've been checking things to make sure the fiberglass doesn't turn before the edge of it, and I'm fine that way. So I'm level, I'm not at the corners. I can tell you if this GPS unit was any bigger, it would not fit here, because I am close, but I'm okay. So next stop is to cut out where these lines are. Before I start cutting, I did grab my safety glasses. Yeah, we're not ready to install this yet. This is just a preliminary test fit. And look at that. Look at that, it looks like it's going to fit in here perfect. Not too far to the bottom, not too far to the top. I think we are good. The next step is I need to drill the 4 mounting holes. That's where the screws go to mount the GPS to the dash. You could go nut and bolt all the way through, but that's not what's normally done. Normally they're tapped screws. So this is really precise. I don't want to be off by much, so I'm going to use a punch to very carefully start the location so the drill can easily go right where it needs to go for these 4 locations. I can see in the blue tape right where these are at, because I can see the lines underneath, but that might not come through pretty well on the camera. Okay, for these 4 mounting screws, we're not using machine screws. We're going to be using tap screws. We're going to actually use the wood that's inside of here. Here's a cutaway. You can see it's a pretty thick material. Fiberglass on the back, fiberglass on the top, and wood in the middle. So what we don't want to do is crack the fiberglass as the threads are going through this. So you go 2 sizes up, and we're just going to slightly countersink the holes. These are 1/8 of an inch threaded holes. We go to 3/16. I'm just gonna slightly countersink the hole. I haven't tightened the screws all the way. This is just a test fit to make sure everything is centered and fitting right. It fits in there nice and tight. All the screw holes line up. Put the cover on. It snaps on in place. It's very snug. And it looks straight on the bottom and on the top. And this is actually on an angle. This piece right here starts smaller and gets larger. So going by the straight edges, I'm very happy with how the unit is centered. And I did want to avoid a dash mounted or ram mounted unit. I've had those in the past. I found they were in my sight lines or didn't support well, or the ram mounted were always in the room with the cup holder or the throttle. So I wanted a flush mounted GPS. Since I started boating, actually, more than 15 years ago, and now I finally got one. So still electrical to do, but I'm very happy with how this turned out. Now I'm getting close to installing the marine radio. It's a communication radio, not sound. That's down below. So I've got this just sitting here. It's not wired up yet. I've got the starter location figured out. It's not wired up yet either. And I picked out the location where I'm going to be putting this. I'm using the template. Just as a little tip or trick, of course you measure twice, cut once. Once I've got this figured out where I want it, I just secured one side. I then just took washable school glue and put it on the fiberglass, put it up, touched it so the tape's not going to cut away as I'm cutting. I then put tape around the outside. Next I took a hammer and just gave myself a spot so I don't have my drill bit wandering around. Next I'm going to drill the 4 corners. Just like with the GPS, we need to do a little test fit just to make sure everything is right. We can still do some filing now if need be. It fits tight and the holes are lined up. Now we're going to go with, we have 1/8 inch holes, so we're going to go with 2 drill bits larger and just countersink through the fiberglass. Again, just that top portion. That way when we screw the threaded screws in, they're not going to break the surface of the fiberglass. Please hit subscribe to follow along as we restore this boat, then go on boating adventures.